at the end of every meditation, and it could be as little as 3 minutes. Sometimes they're long, sometimes they're short. There's always a prayer. And I think that we lost prayer in our religions, and it's so powerful to me. It's a little bit of gratitude. It's a little bit of thank you. And it's a little bit of like whatever I'm speaking into the world. And sometimes saying out loud is really powerful. Last night, like a crazy man, before I went to bed, I went outside, I looked at the stars, and I said, show me some signs tomorrow. I'm ready. That keeps me grounded.
Welcome to the Stay Grounded podcast. I'm your host, Raj Jana, founder of Liberate, and it's my mission to help you become the most grounded, loving, and authentic version of yourself that you can be. Each week, I interview experts in the fields of mindset, spirituality, and emotional well-being. My brilliant guests share their tools, stories, and unique perspectives to help you develop the skills you need to show up fully for the people and things that matter most in your life. Now let's dive in. Hi, everyone, and welcome to this special episode of Stay Grounded with my dear friend, mentor, brother, Mr. Michael Clark. So Mike is a true Renaissance man who has made his mark in the worlds of real estate, media, entrepreneurship, and philanthropy. He currently leads or is part of his nonprofit, The Change Reaction, which is dedicated to innovating new models of giving, manages his family office, and explores the realms of ancient yogic wisdom and consciousness. He also shares his expertise as an adjunct faculty at the Columbia University, teaching real estate, private equity, and entrepreneurship. Mike is one of my closest friends in Nosara, and this conversation was a deep dive into personal growth, relationships, leadership, spirituality, exploring the power of vulnerability and surrender, redefining success through the lens of return on energy versus return on investment, and really looking into where our primal need for belonging and validation comes from. We talk a lot about healing generational trauma and really healing our family relationships and how deeply meaningful that has been on our journeys, the importance of daily practices like gratitude and prayer. In fact, Mike's little tidbit at the end around prayer was just so meaningful for me to hear, and I hope it is for you as well. And truly, actually, just so many lessons from Mike's illustrious career as an entrepreneur, a giver, a doer, and somebody who I deeply respect on the path of consciousness exploration and creation. So I hope you guys enjoy this conversation. It was one of the first that I recorded live in Nosara at a beautiful studio. And I really appreciated the chance to get back into the live episodes. I've missed having that in the way that I do in the States. And so I hope you enjoyed this. And without further ado, here's my main man, Mr. Michael Clark. Enjoy. Yo, what's up, everyone? And welcome back to Stay Grounded.
Hi-ya-ya.
Mike. So everybody listening, Mike and I actually hung out yesterday with Mike's Up, the whole thing. We recorded a full-on amazing conversation.
Seemed amazing,
at least. I think we said some pretty epic stuff.
yeah.
But then the audio didn't go through. To no one's fault, except Spirit.
To be fair, one of our themes was to not have attachment to outcome in
I
business.
think we actually called that in.
And so it was like, do things just for the sake of doing amazing things with no attachment to the outcome. And literally, we spent an hour and 15 minutes in the best setup in Nosara. And then today it was like, yeah, so it didn't record. I just laughed. I was like, perfect.
Yeah, we literally created the reality that matched exactly the lesson we needed.
It's great.
It's pretty beautiful.
The cool thing is that we had so much fun yesterday that hanging out with you again is such a treat that we wouldn't have done this.
It's pretty amazing to just roll with the punches and to trust that everything in our lives is actually setting us up to have the best life in this moment, or what we're supposed to experience.
By the way, in the last day, a lot's changed for me. I swear to God, a lot happens in Nosara. Okay, so yes, I was in a place of like, I was telling you about how I was feeling my boredom. And I was like saying how lucky it was and like how fortunate to be bored, because then there'll be times of chaos and times of problems, or, you know, boredom is a lack of having any issues. So it's a beautiful place to be, and from that creativity can flow.
Yeah.
And I'd worked on this like docuseries I was really like focused on and interested in. And I just don't see it going anywhere. I don't know. I kind of was pulling the plug on it, and like I just finished it and I just did the treatment. I spent a bunch of money, have cool writers, etc. And I was like, I guess that's one of those projects that I just started and won't finish, you know? And then today, out of the blue, a friend of mine who's like a very, very successful, big businessman, entrepreneur, philanthropist, was like, and he does some similar things to me. He told me about this idea for this docuseries he wanted to do.
It's
the exact same idea. And I'm like, I have the treatment. And he's like, let's fly around the world, like doing service and like helping all these organizations. So it was just this weird phone call out of the blue that was just a sign of like, once you're ready to like let go and be like, sometimes it just comes back. And so today was like a comeback day. There was just so much action and doing, which is where I'm normally more comfortable after a long period of nothingness. And it was like, I think I asked the universe for a sign last night. I was like, hey, if I'm doing this right, will you please give me something today? I just need a little bit of a sign because I feel a little bit lost in this space of doing nothing.
Yeah.
And today felt like that sign.
So interesting that you say that, because I actually have been brewing a similar state of angst. Not necessarily like it's not angst is a strong word. It's not like I'm in a state of like chaos, or it's not that, but there's this like impatience with the process, or a lack of trust in divine timing, or this belief that I need to be further along than I am. Whatever the source of the noise is, it actually is irrelevant. But I feel like there's been this thing brewing. And today I got to a place of just releasing. In fact, this morning I had like a really deep cry, and I was in my meditation, and I just like started bawling in my meditation, and it was just like flowing, and I was just feeling this, like I was feeling everything. I was feeling stuff from like my last relationship. I was feeling stuff from business stuff. I was feeling stuff from just like me. And ultimately at the core of it, it was me not feeling held by the universe or God or whatever higher power. And like coming back to that, it almost like cleared a bunch of debris. And then today I've had one of the most magic days. Like I had a call with somebody who gave me the exact answer I was looking for. I had multiple things line up for like next week to be just an epic week of momentum. And
wait, can I stop you there though?
Yeah.
It's interesting. So you said you had a magical day because you were getting things that were furthering your expected outcome along, right? Kind of like because you have a mission, and they were kind of I'm just wondering
going off of what you said, which was you let go of the attachment to the outcome, and then you just pray, and you're like, I surrender. I don't know what to do. I'm just gonna show up again, and I'm gonna show up at the altar, and I'm just gonna sit because I know this is what the path is requiring, and I want to share how lost I feel. And like, that is what I heard from you. And that was ultimately what I felt today. And from that space, it was almost like the release needed to happen in order. It's like you have to, and I've been feeling for me, I don't know if you resonate with this, like you get pushed to these kind of edges of cracking. And then you just let yourself crack. It's the thing you've been resisting the whole time, whether it's in the form of a prayer, a surrender, whatever it is, but that crack happens. And then it's like the opening. That's what the universe is waiting for. That level of devotion, maybe, or surrender.
It's interesting. When I hear the crack, another thing that like I'd been playing with was the idea of being tuned. So like when we're out of tune, we're out of harmony. Like things will tune us. Yeah. And so extreme examples are sickness, right? We're out of harmony with what we eat or how we, treat our bodies, et cetera, right? And so the tuning becomes actual physical ailments, right? And that also happens from mental ailments, right? This is your domain, obviously, the most. But like it happens everywhere where like there's little tunings. And I'm always I forget that I need to be tuned all the time.
Bingo.
Because I'm out of tune sometimes. And sometimes it's not a big note that's out of tune. It's a subtle note.
Well, sometimes it's a physical out of tune.
Yeah.
But in this sense with
yeah.
you, and I'm hearing it's more like a spiritual tune where like there's just like a level of harmony with the divine or with life or with nature that feels out of like, it's like there's you need a cosmic chiropractic adjustment to like.
Well, you're so far into yourself sometimes. Like, because I think, I don't know the exact, someone told me this amazing, parable called Leela. I think it was the idea that like, we know this is all a game and yet we're completely committed and fully in. And so there's this funny thing. And then every now and again we go, oh yeah, what are we doing? Like, I chose this. This is a game. This life is this cosmic dream. But even though we know it, we forget it.
Yeah.
And so there's like this remembering over and over again, and the tuning or the cracking is what goes, oh yeah, wait, what am I doing? Wait, why did I get so serious all of a sudden? Why am I not laughing and like realizing this like beauty? Like, think about like what you said is really interesting, and I don't know, I bet a lot of people resonate with this because I think a lot more people feel alone than they let on. Even when you're surrounded by a lot of people, and a lot of friends and a lot of family, there's this aloneness feeling, at least that I feel.
Yeah.
And so I remember thinking, wow, I'm taking care of my family and I'm taking care of these people. And I was like, who's taking care of me? Right. And I was like, I just wish more people would take care of me. Now that's a whole separate side conversation of like, maybe I wasn't allowing people and I wasn't receiving, and I'm more of a giver. And so I was like taking their ability to receive. But what you said was, I had this thing, I was like, wow, I'm sitting here breathing, fully healthy, abundant. Like, I'm being taken care of by the greatest thing ever, God or universe or whatever. Like, there's trillions of cells in my body, like allowing me to breathe and think at this moment. Like, wow, I'm being taken care of by the greatest of all.
Yeah.
Of course, I still wanted to be like taken care of by some fellow humans, right? That's just like our human part. But that like realization that you had, that we all should have, that's like, it's hard though, because we still need that human touch, but like that remembrance is really like important.
Before we hit the record button, I was about to update you on my new relationship to God.
Oh,
and this is a great segue into that. So recently I had a kind of like a weird journey. Let's just call it that, because it would take a lot to go into the specifics of it. But the experience was I got teleported into a realm where I was in a room with many women. This was like a psychological experience I was having. And these women were all portraying goddesses. And it was this room with 40 goddesses. And I had this experience in there where it was like, it was almost vivid that I was seeing this thing happen. And they all put their hands on me and I was feeling myself get charged up, almost like a dream. And right before I came back to my body in my conscious state, I made eye contact with one of the women. And it was like the most epic experience, because it was like I felt the capital H, her. And I came back into my body and I was like, what the heck was that? Like it truly actually felt like and then the next week I was writing all these poems and writing all these poems to that female, that energy. And the best way I can explain it, and after that, like I had these big ahas, like anytime I was going through something challenging or anytime I'd go into my tears, I would like feel her, the capital H, her, come back. And the best explanation I have for it is like, my God is that woman, and she is communicating through every being. She's communicating through every obstacle. She's communicating through all of it. And every single experience I'm calling in is to get closer to her. So when she sees me crack, that's when she melts. When she sees me align.
Does she have a name?
No.
So it's interesting because, I mean, we're basically rudimentarily rediscovering Hinduism and Buddhism. And it's fascinating, at least this is my understanding. So my wife's Buddhist, and she has a particular figure that she connects with called Guan Yin, the goddess of compassion. There's many others, right? There's Lakshmi, there's Kali.
Yeah.
There's all of the different, and they're all a flavor, right, of the capital G and usually a feminine. And it's very interesting because we all connect with one. That's like our portal, because it's so hard to connect with like the vastness that is God.
Totally.
What is God?
The avatar.
Yeah. So like to actually find like Jesus Christ is an amazing connecting tool. Like for me, I really connect with Jesus and Buddha and like that, and Shiva, right? Because they're like, I can feel like what it would be like, right? And so it's interesting like to connect to this woman, this figure who probably you will see and has a name.
I mean, well, okay. So this figure, she had blonde hair, blue eyes. She was wearing a sparkle headband. That's as much as I know.
Sparkle headband.
I don't know. I don't know if there's any avatars out there that wear sparkle headbands.
But gotta ask the audience.
Yeah, if anybody knows of an avatar from any mythology or life,
or that's your future wife.
maybe, I don't know. But
Right.
what I felt very deeply was just coming back to this remembrance that I am held by a power bigger than me. And for some reason, shifting the energy of it from being like a masculine God to a feminine God actually helped me feel the nurture of the universe, and it allowed me to be more vulnerable with myself and admitting when I need help, admitting when I'm falling apart, admitting when like I need to say a prayer. And there's something about that I feel is really potent and needs to be said more, because I think these are the moments where you crack are when you can actually define the relationship to God, creator, creatrix, whatever you believe.
Well, you know who you were with the other day? You were saying Annie and Jennifer.
Yeah.
And so Jennifer taught me something, and she talked about father love and mother love, right? And father love is the idea of seeing the best in what you could be, right? So come on, you can do better. Like one more lap, like that whole father love energy of seeing the vision for where Raj can be. Like I have a more father love type atmosphere of like, I see where Raj can be. So I'm not content with where Raj is now all the way. And that's my way of loving you, because I see like the future you, right? And mother love is I love you exactly the way you are. There's nothing for you to do, nowhere for you to go. There's nothing for you to accomplish. You are absolutely loved. And of course, both are why we have, mother and father. And it's interesting to like actually just even notice and name that, because while I might be mostly father love, I need to shift to mother love sometimes.
Yeah.
And, vice versa. Like other people who are all mother love, they need to like also shift to father love sometimes.
Well, it's something we're stepping into more. It's actually, I saw this really beautiful post on Instagram today around like just the evolution of intimacy and relationship. And I feel like the last few years, there's been this big shakeup of people beginning to do this deeper work in relationships so that they can have better relationships. And it's not that I'm even looking for the most feminine of feminine women and vice versa. We're all seeking balanced, integrated, masculine, feminine energies within ourselves and seeking to respect and be seen and respecting someone else's balance. The balance is what I'm now really cultivating within myself. And the balance can be called masculine, feminine. I mean, there's king, warrior, magician, lover, which is like the 4 archetypes of the masculine.
It's a good book. By the way, you read that book?
It's amazing. It was one of the most useful books pretty early on. I read it back in like 2020, and it gave me a really useful frame to think about where I was falling short.
Totally.
And like
I think every man should read that book.
I think every woman should read that book so you can understand your men better.
Right.
To be honest, like I think everybody should just read that book. Is there a book similar for women?
There's a book that actually Radha recommended, and it was basically the reverse of David Data's Way of the Superior Man. And I'm forgetting, but it's basically about how women are creating frogs out of their princes. And
oh yeah, God damn it! What is
doesn't
the
matter
book?
what it's called.
I know what.
I had on my
Alison Armstrong.
Queen's, yes, Queen something.
Yeah.
The Queen Maker or something like that.
Yeah,
Anyways, there is that, and women can be helpful in actually nurturing that part of a man. But it's interesting because like I realized there was parts of me that were still the boy.
Totally.
And it was, and you know, the remedy.
What parts were the boy for you? Like if you look at King
Most
William.
recently, I mean, they were all boys at some point, but like the most recent one was the lover. And like that's what I've been really working on. Is like it's kind of, I would say embarrassing. It's like at 40 years old, I'm fully committed to understanding women, and I don't think I ever understood them.
Totally, dude.
Like I literally like there's a whole world I had no idea about.
I still don't know shit.
No, like I feel like an infant. Like it's cool,
Yeah.
but like I'm like, oh, you like to go that slow. Like the idea of like it's like the slowness and this way of being and like understanding how they work and like
Totally, dude.
it's like and no one taught us this.
That was my biggest. In fact, I had just the sadness I had this morning was in part like realizing all the things I'm learning now. I wish I would have known for my past partners.
Yeah.
Because like it just makes me sad that, you know, I didn't know. And,
I didn't know.
And
there just seems it's better late than never.
Right.
But like, but how is it that like a bunch of guys are just like not taught how to be with women, how to treat them, how to understand them, how to make love, how to like all of the things. We're just like sent out into the wild. Like we watch movies and pop culture and pornography in order to like understand how to like, it's absurd.
It's a toxic system that requires us to untangle and I mean, it's the untangling. I think it's like, that's the piece that's so difficult, but I also appreciate the movement that's happening right now.
Yeah.
Like, men are really, I meet so many solid, good, whole, amazing men.
And there's a lot of women that are being super kind and generous and patient.
Totally. Yeah.
Like I have a friend, she's just like committed to like helping guys understand. And she's like, and she has the tools and she has the like the language. And it's like, she's like, it doesn't make you feel stupid, you know? And that's like part of it is like inviting like the men over.
I think that's a big part of the, you know, we can go deep on masculine, feminine dynamics. But that the invitation, I think for both parties, if I found like, I think women are looking for the same type of guidance from men that men are looking from women in some ways. And I'm actually really appreciating a lot of my girlfriends right now that are coming to me and like wanting to understand like me better, understand like men better, understand what, like how they can be more receptive, more in tune. Like we just talked about the book, right? Like I think I really, for as much as there's shitty human beings out there and there's all the shit in the world that's happening, and I mean, I feel like I'm just surrounded. I feel lucky to be surrounded by so many men and women that are so devoted to being the best versions of themselves for not just themselves, but for their partners, for their teams. When we talked about this in depth yesterday, just around, you know, building awesome companies instead of building big ones.
Yeah, that was a really interesting one. That's I'm still probably have a connection to like the big versus small and building conscious. And
well, okay, let's take away big because
Yeah.
big as a word has a lot wrapped in it.
Yeah.
But if we think about building conscious companies, and if that is the thread, the through line, what gets birthed from that could still be massive.
Well, that it's interesting because how conscious, right? Because we could spin forever, right? So like there's a balance between allowing an employee who's going through a hard time, you know, have extra time off. You know, we talked about like understanding people's different cycles, whether it's actual moon cycle or it's someone's just like, you know, their cycle needs, you know, a day off every 3 days. But like how conscious do you go before like it becomes just a like you're not getting anything done? And so this is going to be a really interesting topic of like companies that are so conscious and so sensitive that nothing gets done. And where's that fine line? Because obviously we were way too cutthroat before and way too all about the bottom line. And now do we swing this way?
It's interesting. I've literally had this conversation with my co-founders because like, you know, we're building a company that helps people deal with their triggers.
Right.
So when somebody at work gets triggered, it's like we have to stop and we have to do the work and we have to examine it and we have to ask ourselves the questions and go into the process and create the space for it to come through. Because that's ultimately what's being built. And so it does take away from productivity. Like sometimes it's like everything we're doing has to stop, and then we have to focus on clearing and having those types of conversations and opening. And I'm getting to the point where I'm just trusting that clearing the energy within our systems is the most productive thing we could be doing.
It's interesting because I could see how we could take that view of like just a healthy organization will produce better in the long run, even though in short time periods, it'll be less productive.
Yes.
Right. But on the long haul, because you are never going to lose employees.
That's the thing.
You gain like through the months and years, you will gain productivity.
Yeah.
It's just going to take a while.
It's
so you need capital that actually doesn't have a 3-year, 4-year window. And this is always the biggest issue. So like even forgetting conscious companies from before, the biggest thing that we did before was we never took short-term capital. Because I've been right about a lot of things, but I've never right exactly on the timing. I've been wrong about a lot of things too, but like it's the timing that's always scary. Like I could be 3 months off. I could be 2 years early. So that's the timing issue was always a problem with debt. And now with a conscious company, it's like, well, I guess this would take us 2 years to hit these benchmarks, but if we do it consciously, I can't guarantee it because we might need to just listen to what's happening right there. We have to take a pause for a month. Everyone's taking a month off. We realize that it's just not right in the cycle of what's happening. Like that would be a weird thing to do.
Dude, so this is coming back to the real root of what I was examining is from this space of expanded out. If you expanded out the timeline from 3 years to 20, are the returns going to be better because you've actually built something sustainably that's growing and listening? And what's the value of listening? I don't know. I'm actually unsure of the long-term implications of this whole thing. I mean, and I don't know because I don't think capitalism is fully caught up to fully conscious. It's not capitalism. It's a different form of value creation that is acknowledging the true cost of doing business.
The cost of externalities and the true costs, I call it the full ROE, return on energy.
Yeah, you were actually one of the few people. I'd love for us to jam on this.
Let's talk about this.
You were one of the first people to really like kind of impress that on me. Like, can you expand on return on energy and why you think that's a better metric than return on investment?
Well, so, I mean, obviously the normal return on equity is like $1 in and how much you get out, right? And first, let's back up on what money is. Money is a source of energy. It's a capture of a unit of time and energy, right? And so that's all we're doing is basically we're saying this thing over here should be done. Let's say we should help cancer patients. We should plant more trees, whatever it is. So you've captured this money and this unit of energy, and then you've said, and our gross crude thing is that like I put in $1 and I get $1.50 back. Okay, return on equity. But what if that was just one component? How much energy you got back from the money side? But like, okay, well, how many people did we employ? Like how many, like how happy did people get after this? Like what were we doing for like the environment and like all the people that we're treating? So like to have just a return that's based upon only money is silly. Like why would if I was looking at an oil and gas drilling company and I was looking at Liberate, right? And the return's 40% on oil and gas, it's 20% for you. It's like, okay, well, these are better returns. That's not true. Like you've got 1 million people who were treated for cancer and healing and what they did for the world. And how do we measure that? How do we start measuring the true impact of what we're doing? And also measure the impact of like the downfield of drilling oil, like all the externalities. So we need to measure better. And that's one of the issues. Like I'll give you an example. My partner's doing something that he's super excited about, which is basically he's taking less of a return on a real estate deal in order to house teachers. He's not doing a charity, but instead of getting a 15% return, he's taking an 8% return so that he can house teachers at the price that they can afford, right? It's a weird thing. It hasn't really been done that well because it's neither charity nor capitalism. He's taking a total return on energy because he likes the fact that he's like he has his charity bucket, but this is like, it's making money, just not that much. It's like an 8% return. It's fine. It's very safe, but he's getting all this benefit of helping teachers in his area, right? So his return on energy is incredible.
Yeah.
His return on equity is 8 versus 15, but like return on energy, we need a new metric for that because the happiness that he'll get from this building is going to be much better than a 15% return building. And so there's a new way to like look at the total energy around like what we're building. And part of that is like, we need better metrics to like understand what we're doing.
Better metrics. We need people to be clear on who they are ultimately. I mean, I'm asking you like this return on, I mean, let's just play this out. How does one even get to understand what brings them energy? It's like what is the process of calculating your own return on energy? Like what would you like, how do you do it?
It's weird because like right now we have no metric other than how much we get lit up by talking about it.
Right. And that's a momentary, that's a
Yeah.
momentary thing, right?
Uh-huh.
Like, because that's like, oh, I get super excited about this, but how many times do you get super excited about something? And then like 90 days later, you're on to the next thing getting super excited. So then there's like, it's an interesting question. And I don't know if I have an answer for it. And I also really believe in this because this is ultimately, I think, what the thesis, if you would, around impact investing. Like that's what it is, right? Like it's like investing in things that.
Well, okay, let's you have a company that does something that could be applicable if we took your tech, which is basically a better version. I'm not to diminish how great your company is, a better version of a form to fill out, right? Okay. A check-in. Okay. And so like imagine like your employees and people at the buildings or people in the field, whatever, like they had like a happiness quotient somehow. So you could measure this. I don't know the answer. It's intuitive. It's instinctual. And this is the problem. It's why all this like ESG stuff's garbage. It's all like greenwashing. And it's like, no, it's just doing it for the story.
Well, so let me ask you this. Like how much does, it sounds like what you just said, I really appreciate you bringing intuition back into the fold. How much should intuition guide the process? Because I think ultimately this is what we're coming back to. Maybe this is what's opening up as a channel. Like as I start to do more of my work, I genuinely feel more inspired to follow my intuition.
Okay, well, how about this? What if we used intuition as an overriding guide, but we still had some metrics because that's what we need in business sometimes. So what we did, like we talked about this on the beach one day, where it's like, okay, return on capital gets weighted 10 points, and let's rate this like deal. Okay, it's 8 out of 10 on return on capital, so it gets 8 times 10, so it gets 80 points, right? And then it's like employee satisfaction, it gets weighted 4 points, right? It's like environmental impact, and so you basically have this scorecard, right? It's not perfect, but all of a sudden you're scoring and you're at least looking at things. This is kind of what ESG did, but we could do it for ourselves and it's not for anyone else. And then you go, okay, this has a total score of whatever, 92.1, right?
So in order to have a checklist like that, you have to get clear on what you care about.
Yes.
Yes. How do you get clear on what you care about?
For me personally, I get most excited when other humans' suffering is altered into a joyful state. So the most excited I get is when someone who's having a tough time, their tough time goes away and they go into a joyful state.
So that's like an overarching bucket.
Yes.
Did you come to that realization after repeated examples of it, like that repeated in your life multiple times, and you kind of just zoomed out and saw that, wow, this is actually like a big thing for me? And then that led to you deciding that this is kind of like the umbrella for you?
I think in philanthropy or in charity work, it's just like business, because you're looking at like, how do I solve a problem? How do I get a team around it? How do I have an outcome, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's ego involved. Sometimes you're doing things for recognition and you're like, don't even know you're doing it. All these things. The only metric I have is intuition, which is when I get an email and it's like, hey, do you want to like help solve this thing and like, or whatever. And then there's one from someone else and one really lights you up. And so just being lit up, and like the one that particularly lights me up is people who for no fault of their own got hit with really bad luck. And then you have a chance to help. And so, because it's so clean and clear.
Yeah.
So for me, like there's no better feeling than helping parents whose kid got sick and they had to leave the workforce, and they just like, why me? And then being able to like solve that problem. That to me is like the cleanest, clearest, most, it's when I feel my heart fully full, right?
Yeah.
Like more so than like helping the environment. Cause there's people.
And well, I think that's really important to like come into, because so you found your through line by paying attention to what activated your heart.
Yes.
In many ways.
There's probably a relationship to, we talked about it yesterday on our unrecorded secret podcast that there are features inside of us that are not bugs. And it's beautiful that we're all different because we all have a different role in this universe, in this society, right? And so it is probably true that I resonate with people that are hardworking but can't catch a break. And if you could just be a little wind beneath their sail, like, and just be like, wow, that person just really took it, and you were just a little, cog. There are other people who are in my world that are women who have dealt with abuse, and they are absolutely dedicated to that demographic. For me, like, I don't have a relationship to that. Doesn't mean I don't want to support it, but it's not the thing that like really lights my heart up. And so we all have those things, and just like to like open up to it, because the more we open up to it, the more we're going to go deep on it. And so I love helping people who are hardworking and just can't catch a break. And there's an easy problem to solve. That like but for that, I mean, homelessness is a whole different thing, right? That's an intractable issue. And a lot of people are really focused on it, but it's like a never ending issue. And so for me, like that's never really been a major focus. Preventing homelessness is something that's interesting, but solving homelessness, ending homelessness, that's like a something way bigger than me. It just doesn't get my heart like pumping. But that's okay. There's many people who it does. I'm curious, like what, obviously, I think helping people with cancer and trauma.
Well, for me, actually, when I look at the through line, it's helping people wake up to the fullness of themselves. I get so inspired when I'm in like groups and I witness people have courage and do hard things, have the courage to take a chance on themselves, because it's like that journey of choosing love in the face of fear and inspiring that in people lights me the fuck up. I love witnessing love win. And I love witnessing people access love within themselves. Like it's what actually like it brings me so much purpose when I really live into that for myself. And I know my message is my medicine in a lot of ways. Like I'm so drawn into this because I see it as medicine for myself as well. Like for me, it almost feels like a big through line. It's like the thing I need the most. And it's also the thing that I love witnessing in people the most. And if I had to give my mom and dad one gift before I died, if they somehow were able to access deep self-love, and if they were able to see the beauty that they are and really feel it in their full body, I can't think of a greater gift I would want to leave them.
I got a text last night from my dad, and it teared me up a little bit. I've had the relationship with the dad is always just like it's a big one, right?
I get it. Yeah.
So he sent me a message, and it was just like, he goes, you've been the biggest gift in my life. And like, I'm just so humbled to be in your presence. And it was like, and he's kind of felt like a younger brother to me, and I've taken care of him, but I have full love for him. And it was like this feeling of compersion, which is often used in polyamory, but like for parents, where like his joy is my joy. And it's so cool to finally feel that, because there was so long where there was a rivalry and this like anger.
Man, I get it.
Of like, why weren't you there for me? Right. And then like that letting go. And then now it's like, oh man, he had a hard life. And then I sent him a picture of our kids and I was like, Dad, look at our lineage. We did this. It's like, because like everything he did his fucking best. Now, maybe I didn't think it was good enough when I was 12 or 20 or 30.
Yeah.
And now I realize at 40, wow, like he got me to this place.
What a gift, right? Like, I mean, that's a testament to how much work you've done on yourself too, man. Like, I really want to like mirror that, because like I see that my dad and I've told you this, like we couldn't be in a room without us throwing something at each other. And he was just in Nosara.
Yeah.
And for me to be able to host a dinner like I did, to be able to love on him and see him and celebrate him without needing anything from him, still brings little tears.
It was super special. And one thing I want to like just like recognize, just for everyone, Raj made a really special dinner for his dad and invited all his friends. And one of the cool things, because I think maybe our generation hopefully will be the last, because I'm hoping to break it with my daughter and son, is this weird separation between parents and kids. And there's like a lack of knowledge of what we did and what we do. We're not as close. And it's like, it's silly. And like to bring the parents back into the fold, like come to Burning Man, come to our party, like come see my life. Like, I want to show you. And so I think our mutual friend, Steven, like his dad's
so inspiring,
80 years old, has been in 19 Burning Man with him. And what he told me, I said, because I asked him, like, how did you keep so close with your son? And he goes, well, when he turned 23, 24, I decided to let him become the teacher. And I followed him. And it's such an interesting thing to think about the role of like of student teacher, like morphing. And a lot of our parents maybe didn't make the shift. And so it becomes tough because the fixed relationship of like, I'm the father, you're the son. My dad switched over to being the follower, the student. And it's interesting because we've gotten closer because of it. And it's interesting dynamic to think about, like, because even in fixed relationships where you're with a teacher or an elder, the best ones are also the student and the little brother in parts of the conversation. So it's cool, like when we can bring our parents in, they can be like the learners, and then we can also revere them for their elder statement wisdom,
I think it's the most beautiful form of devotional love. I really feel that more. And like my mom was actually first to kind of switch into that role with me. And for the longest time, I had a much closer relationship with my mom because she was in that role. And what's fascinating is being able to be in a space with my dad where I actually just like, I think you told me this actually, man, I remember us playing pickleball and we were having this conversation about like passing down points of hardship. Can you say it? Because like it was brilliant. Okay, it was so well said around.
This is great. So my mom was my best friend and is my best friend and raised me. And I like finally, I never did the emotional work. I finally recently did it. And so I called her. I was like, hey mom, like I'm so proud of all the work I've done. I have some things I'd like to share. Like, are you in a space to hear? And she's like, yeah, of course. I've been waiting for you to like open up your tough childhood, whatever. And so I was like, okay, when I was like 6, I really felt abandoned. I used to be in this room for hours on end at grandma's house, and it's just like 4 or 5 hours at a time. And I just remember being so alone. And she's like, you were, it was only an hour. You were never alone. And she started like yelling at me. And I was like, I guess you're not here to like receive. And it was like a disaster, just a disaster. She was crying and I like didn't open it the right way. I didn't like introduce it the right way. I didn't realize it was such a big deal. What we realized later was that her father passed early at 3 years old. And she was in that same room and felt abandoned and alone. And so for me to say, to reference that room, like brought up all of her stuff, abandonment, like which was way bigger. Mine was like a little fraction. And so what we realized though is like I felt alone and abandoned, but it was such a she had 10 units of aloneness and abandonment. And what she did was she vowed to never give that to her kids. And so, but of course you can't like not hand down some. So she handed down 3 units, right? But she took that 7 and she stopped it, right? And I'm hoping to hand down 1 unit or less, hopefully, to my kids, but it's going to be a unit and it'll feel big to them. And I'm going to have to sit there and go like, I was just on a 2-week trip. I don't, I'm going to have to wear that. And so is the idea of this evolution of, and then like recognition of like how strong she must have been to take those 7 units.
Dude, even hearing it a second time is so good. Like, I just actually, I meant to text you when I was with my dad because I was literally feeling that. We were having a lot of really deep conversations about his childhood, and he was like opening up about some of the hardships he went through. And I was just like, man, like, thank you. Like, my dad always made one choice. It was to never put a hand on his, anybody. He's like, he's never touched my mom, my brother, me with any type of violence. Or even, because in India, it's not the thing. In India, it's like pretty common for like parents to hit their kids and teachers to like bring the ruler out and hit their kids. And like, it's very common. And that one decision that he decided, he's like, I'm not passing this on. The impact of that on my brother and I's confidence.
Totally.
I mean, like, can I calculate it? No. And it's like, it's one of those, and when I come back to remembering these things, it blows me away because there was some part of me that forgot all of this for 20 something years.
Well, it's okay. You know what's crazy? So this is a good relationship module too, is greens and reds. So like what we focus so much on the things that didn't go well. And like, and we like just take for granted, just as humans, all the trillions of things that are going well. Like just like right now, like literally like our heart's pumping, like trillions of cells in here, like crazy amount of things that are going well right now. But like, like if a bird like comes right through and like, it just, we get all weird. And so like your dad immigrating from India, like all the hardship, getting the job, all the things, like getting a PhD so he could like be in your mom's caste system, like the trillions of things that he did well. Okay, fine. He didn't like say I love you enough, like whatever, like whatever the thing is, it's like hilarious how we like look past all the greens and we focus on the reds.
Well, and coming back to the work, it's because we have children inside of us that just don't have.
Wait, what's your child from the king, magician, lover?
So at the time, back in 2020, I was a prince, and the king part was the one I needed to grow into. And interestingly, where am I now? I still think I'm like really stepping into king. I think king is probably like the one that
that's the archetype that I'm trying to embody as benevolent king.
Like I feel like I'm on I'm a young king. I feel like, and what was interesting with my dad being here, like I actually really felt like I was able to access my inner father by him being there and me being able to hold space for him to go into his, like explain his trauma, explain his childhood.
Wow.
Like I actually felt like I could hold that. And it felt like a level up, a bit of a graduation for me.
Wow.
In that, like,
you could hold it without it meaning anything.
Hold it without meaning. I didn't need him to change. I didn't need to make it wrong. I didn't need anything. I actually felt so nourished and whole. And I imagine that is like if I think of the king, the archetypal king, it is that unwavering, solid, consistent, just there. It's that presence that everything organizes around. And I was at the time, I was 4 or 5 years ago, I was thinking about this in the context of like, business and building and like being like the king who has a kingdom, and then people grow in the kingdom. But energetically, that was where I felt myself like actually get a new layer of understanding around the king. There's an energetic safety.
Well, the benevolent king. So it's interesting about the king because it's one of the 4 archetypes that I think I was connected to most. The king that I see for you and for me is the one who serves everyone first and serves themselves last. That's the true king of the kingdom. Maybe like is like in the trenches is like, a person of the people is actually so busy taking care of everyone, right? Not the one that I think, is nice to think about where like, Raj, can I get that for you? And like everyone bows down and like everyone's respecting. It's like the king that like actually is doing all the work, putting everything on their back because they're strong enough and being so strong that they don't need any acknowledgement. They don't need like anyone to like give them respect because they respect themselves so deeply. That's the king that I see for us is like the servant king.
Well, what's interesting is in the book, the prince is the one that constantly needs the validation.
Yeah.
The external validation, the people pleasing. It's like those are the patterns of the shadow prince in a lot of ways. And you're right, the king, whether it's from that, and I don't think it's a self-sacrifice.
Yeah.
I think it's more of a knowing of like you're so whole and filled with divine love. I actually feel like that is the truth. Like you feel so connected to divinity, like the capital H her or whatever we want to call it up here, that anything you might receive in the form of appreciation or acknowledgement is just bonus, but it's not the thing that makes you whole.
Yeah.
And that is a beautiful thing to strive for. And I find.
It's a beautiful thing to strive for. Well, it's funny because I was thinking about the other day, we were like sitting around the dinner table and I was like, what are we all here to do? Like, we know what's interesting at dinner table. I mean, forgetting it is like people have interesting stories who've led interesting lives, right? And are doing weird, interesting things, right? And so, but at the end of the day, it's because we want to be accepted in some way. And so this need for acceptance drives so much.
Totally.
I don't know that is something we'll ever get rid of. Or do we need to get rid of?
I think it's a part of biology in some ways. Like if you think about the core fears, right? Like 60,000 years ago, let's just say the fear of death, right? It's the number one fear. If you got kicked out of the tribe, most likely you were going to die. Or there was a fear of that person going to die. And so I feel like it's a part of biology to want to be accepted, wanting to belong. I think wanting to belong is a core, fundamental, deep-suited, primal need.
Belong and be loved. And it's interesting all the weird things we do to get that.
Totally.
That's the thing.
The distortion.
The distortion of things that we do to get it, whether we do it through manipulation, we do it through, like, let's just say like, your podcast, let's say you were trying to get it to 10 trillion streams because like then you'd be worthy. And then you could get into any place and be welcomed everywhere, right? It's like going back to the cafeteria when we're 10 and we have nowhere to sit. And like, you know what I mean? And we're like, oh, I guess I'll sit alone. And it's like, so we build up these castles and these kingdoms and this armor so that we're never alone, so that people will accept us. I remember I used to do this all the time. Like I used to, you'd have calling cards of your identity, right? Like I'd drop in like little things I'd be at a party and I knew what I was doing. I'd drop it in so that like I knew instantly I'd be accepted, right? And people used to do that with like their Ivy League schools and like different things. But you can drop in little languages that allows you to be accepted more easily, because that's what we really are craving the most is acceptance.
Acceptance, to be seen, to be valued, to feel like we matter. Ultimately, like that's what I've been really, it's something I see this in our communities all the time. Like, we map, the psychologies of all the individuals that come through our programs. And like, I see it over and over and over again. The common ones don't feel like I matter.
Right.
Nobody sees me. I'm all alone.
I feel like I have a pretty good hack for this.
Please, welcome to the Stay Grounded show, Mike.
No, I really feel like it's one of those things where it's like so simple. It's just service. When you are feeling like that, like you go out and help anyone, and it could be small. It could be like going out into your local garden planting. You're with the plants. It could be going out and helping the local soup kitchen. It could be teaching after school, tutoring, whatever it is. But when you're of service, you don't feel a lot of that. And I think like it is like there's this, because you're connected, you're feeling worthwhile, you're feeling purposeful, you're helping people that need help.
It's a beautiful way to channel
the
energy. But do you feel like service coming from that space of lack is beneficial?
I feel like it's like working out when you don't want to.
Got it. Yeah. Beautiful said. Yeah.
You know, take your ass to the gym. By minute 10, you're in flow.
You're going to love it. Yeah.
Yeah. And it'll shift you.
Beautiful. Yeah. Beautifully said.
Yeah.
I think I asked that because I think that's one of the things we even talked about. We talked about so many things in the last 2 days. I'm like laughing because like this is actually great. I'm glad this conversation is happening because it's really beautiful. But I think one of the things we talked about yesterday was like if you were born with a flaw, or if you were born like if you're doing something because you really love to get the validation, is it still a beautiful thing to do? And the answer that we came to was it could be.
Could be.
If it's done in awareness, if it's done unconsciously, it could or it could not be. It could still be good if you're doing it unconsciously.
So I think I said this, the guy that called me today, he's a great guy. And he was like, this is the pitch he had to me. He goes, Mike, let's fly around the world helping organizations from unsung heroes that need a little bit of extra funding and know-how and kind of like resources. And I'm like, this sounds like my dream. I've been like thinking about this, just like going around and finding heroes and just giving them a little more extra boost, right? And I said, I was like, it's funny. I go, this seems like the ultimate cool game to play. I can't think of a more fun game than that. But recognizing that there's like I would love to, like, even when I come back to like Nasara and like I'm like at dinner, I couldn't wait to tell you about it. I met this guy in Africa and he's solving the water problem like this. And you know what? That's my enthusiasm to tell you these things because I feel so happy to be connected to it. But I'm aware that makes me happy and gives me energy, and I love to talk about that. So there's a little bit of vanity that's actually good for propelling you forward, because like to me, that would be a cool way to have a conversation with you about some of the things that I'm working on that I'm proud of.
Well, this is the piece that's really beautiful. Like, I think this is why I love being like I've been in circles where like actually I'm in a WhatsApp group right now, which is called the Brag Circle. And it's a bunch of dudes that are like awesome. And like, I love being in there because I see some epic brags. And it's like a place to unapologetically brag. And all I want to do is just fucking cheer them on because I'm like, dude, this is epic.
Yeah.
Like you're doing, and so then it comes back to like, what's preventing us from doing that for ourselves? I don't think bragging, owning your brilliance, any of that is a negative. In fact, the beautiful Marianne Williamson quote, right? Like, our deepest fear is not that we're inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are most powerful beyond measure. It's our light, not our darkness, that, scares us the most. And like, I think there's something about owning your magic from a place of authenticity that doesn't make it vanity. It just makes it you shining. And if somebody sees it as vanity, they might be in their own shit.
It might be their own thing, yeah.
It might their own thing.
Yeah.
But when I remember the conversation we had, and all I saw was, dude, Mike found his baseball. Right. Mike found his thing that he was like looking for, and it's like, and it's good and exciting.
Yeah, and it's like a boy-like wonder.
Yeah.
It's not, I'm better than you.
Totally.
And it's a different energy. And like, I really want to celebrate that. Like, oh, wow. Like, like everyone's dreams and like bragging about what they did. Like, and it just, it's the aperture. It's the change of perspective as to why you're sharing it. You're not sharing it to, as we were talking about peacocking earlier.
Sometimes you're sharing to peacock.
Sometimes you're sharing. Okay, I want to bring that up. Just can you talk about the peacock? It's so good.
So I had an opportunity very recently to sit at dinner with a very accomplished relationship expert and coach, and
Should we say her name?
Annie Lala.
Okay.
And Annie was giving me some beautiful advice on, just dating and being single and finding your person and all the things. And one of the things she mentioned was that, Raj, in evolutionary biology, if you look at all the animals in the animal kingdom, the male peacocks and the female chooses. And she was like, Raj, you need to be peacocking everywhere you go. Just put yourself in every, like, say your truth, speak your word. She didn't know I had a podcast, but she was just like, she was like, put it out there because your person is going to hear it. And she's going to be like, that's my mating call. And so I don't know why you wanted to bring that up, but
well, no, it's the idea of, I think there's been a shift in like this, like really humble, we don't talk about what we do. If you've noticed, I think it's a nice trend, but no one asks anyone, what do you do? Like, right. It's been like, I'll go months without knowing what someone does.
totally.
Right?
And which is actually, I love it.
No, it's nice. And it actually tells you a lot about someone. I posted something today from Shi Heng Yi, and it was like, you don't know who I am. You only know my actions. And so when you're complimenting me, you're not complimenting me. I don't even know who I am. It's only my actions. And so it's interesting, just like a dynamic of like, don't tell me what you are, show me what you do. And so we got away from, yeah. And I just think that was an interesting thing.
Well, show me what you do is different than what do you do?
Yes.
Because what do you do is the idea of what you're doing.
Yes.
Show me what you do is your character.
Yes. And I just think that's a cool thing that actually will help us and train ourselves to actually have a metric. Because a lot of us talk about the things we're going to do and talk about, oh, I'm this or that. Well, show me.
Yeah, peacocking properly.
Yeah. And so I think a little bit of peacocking, by the way, another thing that I love about the peacocking is, first of all, we've all seen the planet Earth with the crazy male birds with the crazy feathers doing the wildest dances.
Totally.
It's so fun to watch. And so we all have our own version of a peacock. And I love being in a party and watching and observing the male peacocks, because every male peacock has a slightly different thing. Some people are like a little funnier. Some people are like furtive. Like some people are seducing. Some people are like correct. It's just like so funny to watch the male's peacock. And so you see males differently when it's all men in just like, we're talking about like in a heteronormative relationship, but like all men in a room, like they're different. Then you bring in a bunch of females and all the men change slightly. It's so fun to watch. But anyways, going back to the peacocking, I want to hear and see a healthy version of peacocking.
Totally.
Like, oh, you have a podcast and you are like helping like people heal from trauma, from cancer. Like that's rad. Because guess what? I'm going to go home and be like, maybe it's going to inspire me more to be a little bit more.
Totally. And I think this is the piece I've been coming back to, is not to shine my authentic expression. Right? Like I don't really talk about what I do. I love to, so my favorite conversations are the ones around who I'm becoming. Like my favorite conversations are like, what was the biggest trigger you just worked through? Or like, what's the last thing you worked through with your therapist? Or like, those types of conversations just feel so rich and juicy to me.
Those are good.
Because it's like, it's the truth. It's not the...
Oh, okay. So I have, Andrew, it doesn't matter. We won't say his whole name. Andrew and I had the best conversation the other day because we do this thing. And I honestly don't know anything about him, but I've hung out with him like 100 times. So we were doing this thing where we do experiments with ourselves. So I'm like, what experiment are you working on right now? And he goes, oh. And I was working on being versus doing. I'm doing the being experiment for Mike Clark. And he goes, how are you doing? I'm like, well, I was actually so committed to being that I think I was doing. Because I was
doing the being.
I was doing the being. I was like, I'm just gonna be, and I was so focused on being that I think I was doing the being, and then we were cracking up because, well, how's it going? I'm like, I think I finally just let it be and like didn't try to do it. Anyway, so we were talking about the idea of experimenting with ourselves, which is a cool thing because it also means that we're not fixed. So like, for instance, like, maybe normally I'm very responsible and a leader, and maybe I don't want to be right now. I'm going to experiment with Mike the jokester, prankster, who doesn't get back to people. I'm just going to see how that feels. And it was an interesting thing. We were talking about like just doing experiments with ourselves to like learn parts of ourselves that aren't as fully expressed in our like fixed pole identity. Because like I obviously prefer certain traits and I've embellished the hell out of them. Right. And they're like, that's the Mike character that I created. And it's perfectly exactly how I wanted it to be. But I'm like, what if I decided to like shake it up? Because there's other parts of me that are completely different, you know? Anyways, I don't know how I got into this thing, but I just like great. The idea of experimenting with ourselves. Like I'm going to be the poet for the next 2 weeks and like not get back to people and why not wear a shirt? Like, I don't know.
Poets don't get back to people?
I don't
What are you saying about
they're,
poets?
They're doing poetry all the time. They're looking at trees. They're not on their WhatsApp. Not the good ones.
Oh my God. Okay. I could talk to you for hours.
Okay.
And maybe on the next episode. But Mike, I'm actually really glad that, and Fab, I'm actually really glad that the audio didn't work out for the last one, because this one was beautiful. I'm really glad that we had the process. It's funny. Yesterday we were saying like yesterday was kind of therapeutic for you and me.
Yeah.
I think we let some things go, and it sounds like today also, like we were letting things go, and from a clear vessel, we were able to have a beautiful conversation about life.
I think
love.
yesterday might have been better for the audience, but I'm very happy I'm here.
I think all of it is perfect, and whatever you're listening to is exactly what you were meant to listen to.
Exactly.
Mike, in the midst of everything you're doing, everywhere you've been and everywhere you're going, how do you stay grounded?
I said it yesterday, and I did it pretty profoundly last night. I do meditate every day, but that's not the key part of what keeps me grounded. At the end of every meditation, and it could be as little as 3 minutes. Sometimes they're long, sometimes they're short. There's always a prayer. And I think that we lost prayer in our religions, and it's so powerful to me. It's a little bit of gratitude. It's a little bit of thank you. And it's a little bit of like whatever I'm speaking into the world. And sometimes saying out loud is really powerful. The power of voice. Last night, like a crazy man, before I went to bed, I went outside, I looked at the stars, and I said, show me some signs tomorrow. I'm ready. That keeps me grounded.
Talk about the show being the medicine we need. It's like, this is why I keep doing this, because I just keep receiving the messages I need through conduits. And this is what gives me faith in some type of a higher power, whether it's a capital H her or another version of it. Like, it's like when we actually listen and just surrender the messages in front of us, always. We just forget to look, we forget to listen, we forget to be with it. But I love you, dude. Thank you for
I love you.
being and for showing up the way you do in the world and for inspiring me to be a better man. I really do appreciate your presence in my life. And
Well, you're the real deal.
I love you, bro.
Love you.
Everybody, that's a wrap for this week's episode of Stay Grounded. I'm your host, Raj. This is your old friend, Mike, and Fab in the back.
Yeah, Fab.
And from us, stay grounded. We'll chat soon.
Thanks for tuning into this week's episode of Stay Grounded. No matter where you're from or what you're going through, I hope it helps you remember just how incredible you are and have always been. If you're on a path of emotional healing or self-discovery and would like to learn how Liberate can support your journey, head to www.rajjana.com/liberate. That is LIBER8 to learn more about our current group programs and one-on-one offerings. I love you guys, and I'll see you next week.